Hello there, thrill seekers. I got a question on the emails, and it goes like this. My superior is spitting her own anger over me, but it is impossible to have a rational talk with this person. I was accused of doing something wrong, but I know that I did everything right. To keep a good relation, I said sorry that my actions made her angry. Her problems are not my monkeys, but how can I deal with my own monkeys in a good way? It's a good question, it's an interesting question, and it made me think of a passage in a book called Shobo Genzo Zuimonki, which I am sure I have referenced elsewhere or other times on this YouTube channel. I've talked about Shobo Genzo Zuimonki before, and I'll just show you some of the versions I have here on hand. This is my favorite one. This is translated by Shohaku Okumura, even though he doesn't get credit on the cover. And a revised version, or a different version, translated by Shohaku Okumura, oh, there goes something, is coming out later this year. This is the most, I think the most common version. This is the one I see around the most. In fact, I have two copies of it, I don't know why. They call it a primer of Soto Zen, but it's also a translation of Shobo Genzo Zuimonki by Reiho Masunaga. I don't know anything about Reiho Masunaga. And this one, I just found, I was on eBay looking up Dogen, just to see what happened. What will happen if you look up Dogen on eBay. And this came up. I'd never heard of this one before. Reverend Ko-Neijo's Shobo Genzo Zuimonki. And who translated this one? It just says, an English translation by a remote descendant, Genkai Shoyu, 1965. I'm not sure who is or was Genkai Shoyu, but that's the translation he did, and it's obviously self-printed, so probably pretty hard to find. So Shobo Genzo Zuimonki is not Shobo Genzo. It is the remembrances of Ko-Neijo, Dogen's attendant, who wrote down a lot of things that he remembered Dogen saying, and it has a quite different sort of feel to Shobo Genzo proper, because it's somebody else's remembrances of Dogen rather than Dogen's. Ziki's like doing something up in the yard here, but I'm not sure what he's doing. Anyway, it's his remembrances. Like I was thinking maybe people remembering what I did and said would be quite different from my own books, so it's probably that difference. But let me read you the passage that I think applies to what the person who wrote me asked about. This is from the new translation by Shohaku Okumura, and it goes like this. Even when we speak rationally while another person says unreasonable things, it is wrong to defeat the person by arguing logically. On the other hand, it is not good to give up hastily saying that we were wrong, even if we think that we are actually correct. Neither defeat the person nor withdraw by saying we were wrong. It is best to just leave the matter alone and stop arguing. When we act as if we have not heard and forget about the matter, the person will forget too, and will not get angry. This is the most important point to keep in mind. So that's the new translation. The translation that I first came across is in the primer of Soto Zen. All these translations are pretty similar, but I'm just going to give them to you anyway because it's kind of, maybe it's sort of interesting. This is Reiho Masunaga's translation. It is not good to overwhelm another person with argument even when he is wrong and you are right. Yet it is also not right to give up too hastily saying, I am wrong, when you have every reason to believe that you yourself are right. The best way is to drop the argument naturally, without pressing the other person or falsely admitting that you yourself are wrong. If you don't listen to his arguments and don't let them bother you, he will do the same and not become angry. This is something to watch carefully. So that's my favorite translation because that's the first one I came across. Let me give you the other translation by Shohaku Okumura. This is Shohaku Okumura's earlier translation. Even if you are speaking rationally and another person says something unreasonable, it is wrong to defeat him by arguing logically. On the other hand, it is not good to give up hastily saying that you are wrong, even though you think that your opinion is reasonable. Neither defeat him nor withdraw saying you are wrong. It is best just to leave the matter alone and stop arguing. If you act as if you have not heard and forget about the matter, he will forget too and will not get angry. This is a very important thing to bear in mind. And he notes in the footnote that the word rationally, even if you're speaking rationally, is dori, which means principle, truth, or reason and argument. It's slightly different. It's one of these words that's kind of shaded differently from the English word we use to translate it. And lastly, let me give you this very rare translation. Even if you stand by reason and your opponent is mistaken, it is not well to overcome him by the force of argument. When you think you are right on your part, you may say, I am mistaken, and retire in defeat. Then you have given up your point too early. It is well neither to beat your opponent down nor to own yourself mistakes, but quietly to leave the matter as it is. It's a weird grammar, but I think I got it right. If you are not concerned about his argument, as if you were not giving ear to it, he will think no more of your argument either, and will not get excited. This is the most important rule of all. So there you go for multiple translations. The new version by Shohaku Okumura contains the Japanese, which I'm not going to read to you, but I did look it over, and I'm kind of going, all of these translations have merit, and they're all just different ways of saying the same thing, obviously, but the shades are kind of interesting, and so, we have whole different ways of putting this, and it's kind of neat. Now, I'll tell you how I have dealt with this in the past, this sort of thing. It's been a few years since I've had a so-called normal job, but really for most of my life I worked a variety of normal jobs with bosses and frustrations and all sorts of things, and I've had a lot of experience in that area. I wasn't always a book writer and a full-time YouTuber. And what I found was the best way to deal with this sort of thing is the way Nishijima Roshi used to deal with me when I would talk to him. So whenever I would go and have conversations with Nishijima Roshi, they were all over the place. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought, well, maybe I realized it a little bit, but I thought I was making a good point. But in retrospect, I was probably just kind of going, just saying a lot of stuff. And what he would do is he'd kind of sit there impassively, listening very carefully to what I was saying and not saying anything for a long time. And I would just keep going and going and going and going. And when I finally said something that he could latch onto because it was rational and it made sense, then he would grab that and he would respond to that. And he wouldn't respond to any of the other stuff. So I tried to model my own responses to various, difficult people at work and so on like that. So I made it a policy to only listen for sort of facts and, reasoned arguments, something that I could respond to without any sort of emotional content at all. So I'm listening to what people are saying and trying to filter out all the emotional content, all of the feelings and all this other stuff, and just get to what is the problem that this person wants to deal with and how can I address that. And I would do this with bosses, co-workers, all sorts of people. When I worked for Tsuburaya Productions, I would say most of the people I worked with were real nice, but there were a few. There was a handful of people at the company who were really difficult. Like, I suppose every company, every business has this, and those people were always tough to deal with, especially when you're dealing with them in a language that's not your own native language. But I would try to find the real substance of what they were saying, devoid of whatever sort of emotional content, as I keep saying, that they're trying to kind of push on me and trying to make me fall in line with whatever upset that they're having at the time, whatever it might be, and just address the thing, the specific thing. And I found that Dogen's advice worked wonderfully there. And this is what I take from what he says here about, let me see if I can find the translation I like. If you don't listen to his arguments and don't let them bother you. So there's several different translations, as we've just heard of that. And when he says if you don't listen to his arguments and don't let them bother you, you got to be careful not to try to score any ego points at all. So you don't want to take the yeah, I'm not listening to you because you're not making sense. Don't let on that you're not listening to this person because the person isn't making sense. Try as much as possible to leave any idea of gaining anything in the exchange out of it. Think of it as both of you have a problem in front of you, and maybe there's a difference in opinion on how to deal with the problem. Doesn't matter. But what you're going to focus on is, instead of the differences in opinion, you're going to focus on the problem, the actual thing that's causing this discussion to need to happen in the first place, and focus only on that. But never let on that that's what you're doing, because if you let on that that's what you're doing, then it seems like you're trying to be superior and trying to score points, and etc., etc. So don't let on. Just do it. Just hold to the actual substance of the argument and address that. There's all sorts of ins and outs to this, and it doesn't always work, and if you allow yourself to get a little bit emotionally involved, that can often spark something, and then you end up with the same old fight that you always had. But if you let it drop, then let the unnecessary elements drop. Also, that idea of not admitting that you're wrong when you're not wrong, I find interesting. Because I think that's maybe a more of a Japanese cultural thing, to just say that, oh, I was wrong when you aren't actually wrong. That would be kind of a Japanese way of handling things, because they're very into, preserving all of this. So you have to be skillful about that. I hate that word skillful. Buddhists always use the word skillful. You have to be careful about that. Try not to make it obvious that you're not admitting you're wrong. Don't go, I'm not going to admit I'm wrong. Don't ever say that. Just kind of let that aspect of it pass by. Let it just flow by. Again, try not to score any ego points. This is not about scoring any points for yourself or winning or anything like that. It's about addressing a problem that is real, a real problem. Of course, a lot of people bring up unreal problems, but I find that sometimes you can find the real problem in the midst of the unreal problems that they're bringing up. You just have to make it seem like you're responding to that thing that they're bringing up without responding to any of the emotion that they're adding to it. So there you go. That's from Dogen's various versions of Shobo Genzo's Zuimonki. This is an interesting book. I haven't delved into it as deeply as maybe I should have, because I've been more concerned with Shobo Genzo. But it's an interesting other aspect, and I am looking forward to Shohaku Okumura's new translation when it comes out. I'm not sure when it comes out, but I sent him a blurb, so there'll probably be a blurb from me on the, front or back cover somewhere. Anyway, there you go. So if you want to contribute to me being able to diffuse arguments rationally, no, not rationally. Anyway, you can go to the URL you're seeing on your screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my number one ways of making a living, and I really appreciate your support. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't gotta donate if you don't want to donate. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Don't argue with people. Bye. Hey, Siggy, what are you sniffing? You sniffing something? What is it? Is it something interesting? I always wonder what he's doing when he does this. He must smell something. Oh, here he goes. He's going to go find it.